Scrambled Serenity. Written by iStar. Daddy Celestia? Celestia was looking over a letter when Discord arrived. The letter was the first curious thing. It was from Ponyville. More specifically, from Twilight Sparkle, inquiring about a list of missing objects. It appeared that something had eaten her quills, every single one of them. That wasn't ignoring the matter of Rarity's orange fabric, only the orange fabric, and a whole host of oddly specific things across the town vanishing over the course of a few months. She skimmed the letter dutifully, confused as to why Fluttershy never reported her flower pots being stolen. Surely if the crime had been reported to the Royal Guard, the problem would have been investigated and solved by now. Royal duties kept Celestia from hearing all but the smallest bits of news from Ponyville, especially with hearths warming only a few weeks away. The second curiosity was not Discord himself, but the circumstances of his arrival. He was happy, as he usually was, and Celestia heard his voice before she saw him. He was singing off-key again, in the way that always made her smile feel more than reflexive. She put the teacup she had been sipping from down onto the saucer that held it, and stood up. She certainly needed to have a word with the Chaos God that loved to slither about the halls of the castle when he wasn't running around with Fluttershy, Twilight, and company in Ponyville, or boasting of the latest addition to his god's world of Chaosville. When she saw him finally burst through her chamber door and stride across the room clownishly, she turned and saw he looked rather fatigued, but still cheerful. A smile pulled at the corners of her mouth, a more professional smile than she would have liked to greet him with.
Dissy?
She noted the large bundles he was carrying, wrapped in cloth. Her stomach sunk with uncertainty.
Where have you been the past couple of months?
She managed.
It's nearly November, and I don't understand why you didn't show up for Nightmare Night at least.
Sally Belly!
He grinned a goofy grin, snaggletooth in plain view as excitement shone brightly in his eyes.
I have a surprise!
Discord?
Celestia said, suddenly a bit stern. She put the letters down on her table and turned her back to the window that provided her with the sunlight she had been reading by. It was too cold to use the balcony. She didn't get another word out.
It's a surprise for you!
She was about to continue. As passive as she appeared right now, she wanted to remind him that he almost missed her birthday. November 6th wasn't that far away after all, and that she hadn't heard a word from him. She wasn't sure that anybody else had either, which was no doubt worrying for Love Discord's friends. Did he have anything to do with the incidents in Ponyville? Perhaps he knew about them. She knew that Draconiqui, or at least Discord, who was among the last of his species, often ate some of the strangest things. She had seen him chewing cans after all. Celestia wanted to remind him that she hadn't seen him since last summer began, at the last meeting of the world's remaining gods, and that not knowing where he was for months, more specifically, him leaving without a word to any pony, especially her, had hurt her feelings considerably. There had always been some mention of where he was going, or a postcard at least. Distance had never dulled their romance before. But she did not receive any, nor could she bring herself to speak on such matters right now. There were more urgent things to discuss, and the needs of her ponies were always greater than her own. She frowned passively and gave him a stern look of a disappointed teacher. It wasn't a face she wore often, but wasn't unusual to see her with. With Sunset Shimmer, it had been a common sight. Discord managed to plop his bundle of blankets onto the chair across from Celestia. She stared at the garish array of quilts and other blankets in confusion. Why had it made such a loud thud? What was wrapped in there? How heavy was it? She was tempted to take a sip of her tea to clear her mind. She needed tranquility, which was something tea often provided for her, especially in recent months. Discord pulled some of the blankets away from the bundled object, which Celestia just noted was the size of 4 or so infant foals. She blinked upon seeing the contents of the blanket, thoroughly bewildered.
It's an egg.
It was an egg, and a very large one. Only Discord's overjoyed smile seemed to come close to rivaling its size.
It is!
Discord?
Celestia said with false calm.
Why do you have such a large egg?
It's not a dragon egg.
he said helpfully.
I know, Dissy.
She looked at the pale pink surface that reminded her of a dawn sky, or her mane when she was younger. She had seen no dragon egg like this ever, for there are things that even a goddess will not see depending on how she lives.
But what I would like to know isn't if it's a dragon egg. I want to know why it's here and where you've been.
Discord tapped his claw to the egg's surface lightly.
You don't remember?
Celestia stared at his puppy dog eyes, wondering why he sounded so hurt, and why this was happening, and
Please just explain the egg, Discord.
there.
I'm worried about a giant egg suddenly being in your company and then brought into my chambers. Who laid this egg?
Oh,
He waved a paw and smiled easy.
I laid the egg.
Celestia gave him a perplexed, concerned, and slightly scared look. She promptly tucked some of her waving mane to the side, so that her even paler coat was visible.
What?
She managed, voice soft and hoarse. The sudden shock had drained much of the little color her coat had.
Well,
Discord began, watching Celestia sip her tea.
I laid this egg just as my father laid my egg. That is what I've been up to. Oh, and the cravings?
He waved his claw this time, made a small snort and smiled.
They were simply outrageous. Fluttershy was kind enough to, lend me her flower pots. That's what friends are for.
He beamed at her.
She even helped me build a nest.
Celestia nodded as if in a trance. It was the only thing she could think to do. She also didn't want to spill her tea. Should she have suspected Discord earlier? Should she have pressed Fluttershy for a bit more information? Would it have helped? She ignored the questions and returned her focus to the present. Setting her tea down, again, Celestia took a deep breath and looked at Discord.
Male dragon equi lay eggs.
She was sure that she should have phrased that as a question. However, with Discord, some questions were better unasked.
Yes.
A sticker with a smiling Discord giving a thumbs up appeared on Celestia's necklace. Normally this would make her laugh, but this had turned out to be, well, extremely not normal. Even less normal than what she expected of Discord, and she put on a calm expression and smiled reassuringly. It was the best thing for both of them that she remained calm.
Well, I suppose we learn something new every day,
Discord smiled and clapped. Instantly, Celestia's coat turned purple and a graduate cap sat upon her head.
Like teacher, like student.
He mumbled, but not unkindly. Celestia laughed, and a bit nervously as well, but she tried to hide that. Maybe she just needed a little coffee to get through this. Or a lot. Or something else altogether. Perhaps she ought to sprinkle a modest dose of whale tranquilizer in her tea and then go take a nap.
So...
It was the question she was regretting that she had to ask. Celestia cleared her throat. She was not Luna, who was blunt and honest. She was herself, the princess goddess of the sun, and she talked and talked with ponies. She was calm and sugar-coated with ease, and managed to hold her own hoof through conversations as much as she did her subjects' hooves. She was not direct, and not quite subtle.
who is the sire?
Her voice was like a whisper. She wanted to cry, just a little, but she did not. She would not. It was not that she perceived him as being disloyal to her in any capacity. Celestia loved him with all her heart, and he returned the feelings in kind. It's just that neither of them was exclusive to one another by their own agreements. Lesser dalliances with other well-aware stallions could happen if she wished it, and he was free to have any willing mortal mares here and there if he wished it. Her want for tears was born entirely out of stress, whereas that would not be exclusively so if their relationship agreement had been just slightly different. Discord jumped up and began to float as he sometimes did, grinning at her with a smile so cheesy that Celestia felt the need to mimic the look and put on her own weak smile. Just for now. He snapped his digits, and a bright, cheery banner was strung across her often quiet and mostly always plain, stately chambers. And they clearly said that Celestia was going to be a father? She didn't question it. She didn't. Not one bit. Celestia just looked at the banner with her mouth slightly agape and struggling for words, no matter how empty. She thinks she might remember a few things now, the kind of recollections that could explain what had shaped the possibility that she was capable of acting as the sire to any creation. Clues, maybe? Or maybe not. Perhaps what she was trying to recall was no more than the usual quirks of dating Discord. What she did know was that she was staring vacantly with watery magenta eyes at this banner.
Surprise!
Discord cheered, casually slipping a party hat onto her head. It had been ages since she felt anything like butterflies in her stomach or a heartbeat quickened from nerves. She was not used to the feeling of her legs being weak or her mask being broken or anything at all like this. She was not a mare prone to silence. She hated it. But she was silent. She stared and stared some more. Then Celestia, for the first time in ages upon ages, fainted dead away.
No, that isn't what I meant, Discord. Not at all. This is all so much and so soon. There has been so much change in the world. Yes, there's been you, my sister's return, the matters involving King Sombra, and Twilight Sparkle, and Cadence, demigods.
She sighed heavily.
I've said it once and will say it again. There's lots of change. Twilight Sparkle has stopped her adventures. She and her friends have matured. Cadence rules her empire. You made friends.
Discord pushed a bowl of sugar cubes towards Celestia. He had conjured it as a peace offering for her when she came to. It also went well with her tea.
There's been us, too. Who would have ever thought that after all that's happened, you'd finally come around to old Dissy,
He snapped the digits on his claw half-heartedly, and a wreath of flowers appeared. He draped them around the egg sitting on his lap like a crown before deciding that a balloon crown would be much better.
Isn't the Draconicus next door just too reformed not to pass up? You aren't going to be like your sister, are you? Ditch all of your silly harmony babble and start keeping the company of...
Celestia slapped him with a tissue. It had not been used, so all was well.
She's not going through a phase, Dissy, and Luna has not ditched Harmony. Nor is it silly. We are together because of it, and I am thankful for it.
She said with a warm, if still uneasy smile.
Egbert does not think that his Auntie Luna is just going through a phase.
Discord said, crossing his arms and giving a very poor imitation of a plucky child. Celestia gave a frown in the direction of both Egbert and Discord.
We aren't going to call our child that. The first Kieran coming from immortal bloodlines. Oh, it's too grand.
Celestia trailed off.
A Kieran deserves a more fitting name. And Auntie Luna is just going through a phase. We all do. Of my 10 previous lovers, I can safely say at least 2 might have been best described as that, no matter how constant my taste in stallions is.
Ponies are boring.
Discord said, crossing his arms once more, looking somewhere between humorous and moody.
Fluttershy is a pony.
Celestia reminded him, sipping her tea. Discord's idea for sweetening tea was to dump all of the sugar in it. In all her years, Celestia had drunk far worse and kept her expression that of serenity as she drank the disgusting mixture. Not that she'd ever tell any pony it was disgusting.
Fluttershy kicks bears.
Discord reasoned.
Any pony that can kick bears without being mauled must be special.
What do you consider special, Discord?
Celestia asked distantly, taking another dainty sip of tea.
Is this a trick question?
Discord asked, stroking his chin in thought and looking at Celestia suspiciously.
Will I be getting any friendship points if I answer correctly?
It isn't a trick question, no.
Celestia replied, looking at Discord with slight curiosity.
But I must ask, what are friendship points?
Discord waggled his eyebrows at Celestia, and she instantly understood. In fact, she understood him so well that she let a little snort slip, and it was only slightly undignified.
Friendship, indeed, Dissy.
She mumbled into her tea. One of Discord's eyebrows began to float away when he refused to stop, and Celestia, faced with the stern expression of a determined monarch, shooed it away regally. This happened surprisingly often. Discord leered no longer, but watched his horror as Celestia drove his eyebrow and him farther apart, and let out a completely masculine scream as he grabbed for the missing feature frantically, only moving the precious egg out of the way before he flailed his noodle-like form about. Eventually, the eyebrow was back in its proper place, and Celestia resumed her tea drinking with an expression of matronly calm that would commit no eyebrow-related crimes. Discord made a face vaguely like a pout in her direction. It ended up more resembling one trying to imitate a moody scowl by living off nothing but the juices of 1,000 lemons. She sipped her tea passively.
Well, Dissy, do you have an answer for me? What do you feel is special to you?
Smiling, Discord held up the egg proudly and watched as its pink surface glistened in the sunlight. Celestia smiled genuinely and discreetly wiped her eyes with a tissue that had been lying about from earlier.
I'm a teacher, Discord, and I have been ever since.
She looked at the window and said nothing, shifting uncomfortably as the silence grew, only to break it abruptly for this very reason.
I have never had a foal,
She said with conviction.
and I have only ever had students, faithful or otherwise. I was not their mother, and they were not my foals. That was our relationship. To some, I might be the one they considered a friend, but a rather professional one and nothing more. All of Equestria might call me matron, but that is purely figurative. If I was a stallion, they would call me father for the same reason, and I would not protest it.
Discord stole a sugar cube and gobbled it up like popcorn.
But I am not a mother.
She sighed heavily, but without emotion. Only weight.
Not until now. I really have not ever wanted to be, but now I am.
Technically, you're the father.
Discord said between sugar cubes. Celestia sighed again, and though the reason was different, it sounded the same.
I am a ruler to my little ponies, and a teacher, but a mother? No, not at all. I have duties, but none of them are parental in any way. To raise a child, a Kieran, do I even have time? I work so much, and I would not want to neglect a child who needs attention to grow. My ponies need me, and I've always put them first.
Trailing off, she looked to her partner who sat across from her with a posture she did not see as enviable.
What are we going to do? I'm not like you. I don't have so much time in the world to dote on others and devote the energy a child would require on them. It wouldn't be enough. It would be wrong of me to try.
A paw touched her golden-clad forehoof.
Celestia?
She sniffled, and it was not an empty apology.
This wasn't expected at all. I never counted on our relationship would lead to this.
Celestia saw that her emphasis of the last word made Discord flinch and wrap his claw around the egg. Their egg.
Do you hate?
No, no!
Celestia cried, clutching his paw tighter and flinching at the sound of her own voice. Her calm voice, her princess voice, her always voice crumbling just enough to scare her.
I love the child in there, but it's a cautious love, Discord. I wasn't ready for this. I may have an infinite lifespan, but it is time that I lack. Time that I would not unjustly take away from my little ponies.
She didn't realize that the teacup was still held in her magic until she dropped it, and a few delayed reactions later, thanked herself for having drunk all the sugary mess in it.
I...
Sally,
Discord said.
it's not that bad.
Bad isn't the word that I would use.
She whispered.
Not bad. Disorderly? I don't know.
What if...
Discord began, tapping his chin and tracing his claw along the surface of the egg shell.
we gave you the time to raise our little girl?
Girl?
Celestia asked numbly, mane spilling into her face. She didn't bother to adjust the sparkling strands.
The egg is pink. It must be a girl.
Celestia managed half a nod.
Go on.
He flicked a claw around her chambers. The sitting room was informal compared to the other parts of the castle, but still, no place to keep children.
We don't live together. Chaosville and Canterlot Castle would never mix. And is that a gilded lampshade, Celestia? It must be new, because I don't recall seeing that before.
It isn't gilded, Dissy, just gold-colored. You should know by now that I adore anything that is pink or gold.
True.
He summoned a bunch of pink and yellow flowers for her before continuing.
What if we changed up order a bit? Switch things up every now and then. 1 year with me, wherever I'll be. Chaosville, Fluttershy's cottage.
Celestia smiled weakly.
And what if Fluttershy finally settles down with some pony? Then how will you be the guest of honor?
Discord looked absolutely mortified.
How can she possibly say no to me? We're friends.
Celestia's expected chuckle sounded just as weak, and only lasted briefly.
I'm only kidding, please, go on. I haven't stopped listening, you know.
Discord snapped the digits on his talon again, and the stick decorated with colored beads and a few bright, soft feathers appeared grasped in them. A label attached to it with a ribbon proclaimed it to be the talking stick, and according to the price tag still left on it, the trinket cost 8 bits.
A year living with me, and then a year living with you. It can't be so bad, can it?
Discord intended the question to be rhetorical, but Celestia didn't think of it as such. She watched the surface of the egg, pearly pink, exposed to the soft sunlight and wrapped in a hodgepodge of blankets.
It's worth a try.
She said softly.
Who knows what might happen?
Upon the pile of cushions on the floor in one of the chambers of the solar wing of the Canterlot Castle rested Princess Celestia. Her smile was constant and somewhere between small and stretched, but if any pony were to see it, they would not see the strain. They would see Princess Celestia, smiling as she did, and to them, it would be the same perfect smile they had always known. That was how Princess Celestia liked it. Politics and other things made sure that she was an expert at such smiles. Her rose eyes held worry in them, but it was masked, and no pony would have noticed that either. She did not swallow or flinch. Her composure was simply perfect, and she wasn't surprised. Inside, she was trembling like the very life next to her. Leaning against her side was a massive egg, and one Discord was quite proud of. Celestia had mixed emotions, to put it simply, very simply. She liked things like that. The egg was really quite large. Its weight against her side was honestly uncomfortable, but she wouldn't say that, even if there was any pony currently around to hear. Oh, Discord was there, of course. Half an hour earlier, he had been winding strands of her tail around the digits of his talon, and rambling on about why the egg felt lonely. She had simply gestured to the stack of paperwork in front of her, and assured him that she was very good at egg-sitting. The egg was quite warm, too. Sometimes she wished she knew what she was supposed to do. Most of the time, Discord had the egg and wrapped his noodle body around it to keep it warm. That was really all Celestia knew how to do with the egg. The egg that contained the child she sired. She kept it warm by wrapping blankets around it and propping it against her side. When it touched her, the heavy pink shell felt strange. The blankets also helped cover the face Discord drew on it with a permanent marker, insisting that Egbert ought to have a good view of their parents. Celestia thought the face was unsettling and quietly tucked the blankets over it again with a soft tug of her magic. She returned to her paperwork. That was that. She was calm. On the outside, at least. This egg was her child. This egg was the child she had never planned on having. Her breathing was almost always very calm, and that was not much of an exception. Her chest only fluttered with a slight irregularity. Discord, meanwhile, slept soundly, clutching her shimmering tail like a blanket and snoring. Celestia almost thought she felt a twitch under all those blankets, and her heartbeat quickened with worry. She inhaled calmly, and then it seemed to stop. She just needed to calm down. This was her child. The child she never planned on having. She felt Discord wake up suddenly, emitting a feminine screech that rocked the room like a banshee's call and startling her. Celestia, goddess princess of Equestria, nearly choked on her next breath and the tea that she had been sipping. Instead, she ended up doing a spit take and coughing into her forehoof as she expelled the tea at the sudden shock, only to see, with a sinking heart, that her paperwork was now drenched in it. She cringed and turned her head around as much as she could to get a good look at Discord.
Dissy,
She stuttered.
what was...
It's going to hatch!
Discord shrieked again, not paying attention to her as he jammed upon the direction of the egg. Celestia swallowed and found her throat to be bone dry.
What?
She managed, voice barely a whisper. Her ears rung from the sound of Discord's wails. She wasn't even sure a prepubescent filly could make the sound that high in pitch. A vase of flowers still trembled nearby, and the rattling of the window still sounded in her ears. Discord proceeded to explain it very carefully.
Our baby is hatching! Eggy is finally going to...
Celestia blinked, dazed. The rest of what he was saying wasn't heard by her. His mouth was still moving. She could see that. His claw was still pointing. She could see that too. But she couldn't hear anything beyond a faint ringing. She swallowed again and found her throat just as dry, but decided to carefully nudge some of the layers of blankets away with her forehoof. The teacup she had been holding in her magic fell, and onto her paperwork no less. Now the sound of breaking rang in her ears too, and it felt deafening. Right in front of her, on the surface of the egg that contained her child, the child she hadn't ever planned for, was a crack on the pastel pink surface, and a big one. She inhaled sharply and coughed. Discord jumped forward and curled up in front of the bundle, staring wide-eyed and excited at the egg before him, mouth agape as he pointed with a claw.
Look.
He whispered. Celestia slowly nodded, feeling dizzy as she watched the surface of the egg continue to split, cracks spreading across the once pristine shell. She wanted to protect what creature, a Kirin, lay inside, but she wanted to protect that little Kirin in the same way that she desired to protect every good pony. She felt horribly lightheaded as she looked on, head swimming with questions that she'd rather dismiss in this whole unexpected thing, and watched the shell fracture. A child would be in there. A child that Discord was already eager to see. The look in his eyes of full at heart-warming day glee was so obvious, was within that egg, and had been since they'd been... introduced. Her breaths were more frequent and short now, but she kept her appearance up. This was her child, and it was a child that she hadn't planned for like she planned for almost everything else in her life, and she reached out abruptly with her magic, her face surprised but not betraying anything else as she snagged what looked like a small golden bell from a nearby table. Her golden aura encircled it, and she shook it, and watched as a small wave of bright, radiant light spread out and then vanished in the Candlelit Castle, searching. No sound rang out, but that was exactly as expected. If one were to look into the bell like it were a goblet, they would see that it would be impossible for it to ring. A few runes from the magic she never really got the hang of were carved clumsily into the metal, almost scratched there when compared to her flowing and elegant writing. A small peal sounded from around the castle, but most ponies weren't likely to pick up on it. Luna would, as would Cadence and Twilight too. Discord heard it, and maybe her Kirin Foal did too, but Discord didn't react. He knew what the bell was for, or more importantly, who it was for. Celestia remained calm on the outside as she waited for Raven to come, wanting to tear her eyes away from the cracks on the pink shell so very much. Raven was nothing more than a secretary. Right now, Celestia, eyes watering, couldn't admit that she had no idea what she was supposed to do. So she sat by, watching cracks grow. Celestia thought very little when the little chimera creature still covered in egg group was particularly dumped into her forehooves. She didn't remember stretching them out to accept the swallowed creature, a Kirin, her daughter. Discord had been right in some way, it seemed. Looked less like an equine than she had imagined. Two eyes with pupils of sky blue stared into Celestia's watery rose ones, not quite seeing the alicorn mare. From the depths of the blankets, two forehooves escaped the swaddling. Both were that of an equine, but not the same. One could pass for normal ponies with no trouble, but the other was shaggy and with unshorn fetlocks that waved the last bits of goop that her thorough but careful towel cleaning hadn't cleaned. Her daughter was a quadruped, Her, Discord, Raven, and the startled personal doctors of Celestia had seen this. Only her right hind leg looked like it belonged on something other than a pony, being green, scaly, and cloven hoof. The same green scales also wrapped around her back, where two mismatched wings lay folded and wrapped up. A blue insectoid wing that Celestia thought looked much like a dragonfly's, and a pink feathered equine wing. She didn't swallow. She stayed calm. Celestia's heart pounded so hard in her chest that she thought it was desperately trying to escape. Her ribs ached with nervous breath. The only signs of disarray were the trails from the tears running down Celestia's cheeks and the patches of her coat that were mussed up. Her mouth was tugged into a smile that hurt her cheeks a little more than it should. The bundle wriggled. Clearly she didn't like having her tail, which was so much like her father's, wrapped up. And she looked up at Celestia again, with those blue equine eyes on a silvery equine face. A mane of autumn hues, sorrel, gold, orange, and a familiar pale pink swept down from her head in a soft wave. The same colors marked the tuft of her tail. Only twin horns, slender and curved slightly at the ends, like some of that of the gazelle or savanna creatures of the west, protruded from her forehead. Celestia in her haze noted that the blue eyes of her daughter matched the blankets that she was swaddled in. Celestia knew that under those blankets was a smooth, peachy, creamy-colored coat, and a left foreleg of thick, shaggy sorrel, and the strangest thing, a sort of cutie mark already upon her haunches. Discord's explanation for this was a dull hum in her ears. Her Draconiquus side dictated her path, but her equine side needed to reflect this. Thus she was born with a mark promising chaos. Right now, Celestia didn't really want any more of that. Her surroundings felt fuzzy, and her mind was in a haze. Only the little filly in front of her seemed to break through it. The last time Celestia had held some pony so small and innocent was over 3,000 years ago, when she first held Luna, who was almost as big as she was at the time. It was one of her favorite memories. She had finally been allowed to see the new blue baby instead of just peeking over the top of the cradle that seemed too tall. Forcing herself to focus on the present, Celestia was unable to look directly at those blue eyes. The chatter of doctors, Discord, and Raven in the background felt so far away that she paid it no mind. She simply stood, immovable and as rigid as a statue, with an infant Kirin filly resting in a white foreleg, where the little one could feel so close to her mother.
Mother.
Celestia flinched at the echo in her head. She hated that it was her own voice that so neatly labeled her that.
Mother.
For her, the description was mostly foreign, especially next to things that she readily accepted like teacher and ruler. Maybe it was when Celestia wasn't paying attention, but that strange little tale of her daughters had escaped its blanket's prison. Celestia's heartbeat thumped painfully in her chest, and she was aware her sense of time had blurred to a shocked stupor that gripped her mind. This little creature who looked up at so unknowingly and like she was the only goddess in the world was her daughter. Celestia's chest felt numb and her head faint.
Mother. Daughter.
Princess Celestia had been prepared for nearly everything. She was calm, a collected mare at nearly all times. She was at ease around her good little ponies. She managed everything and controlled so much. She did not like surprises if they were not little blithe little things. Small things like unexpected jokes at parties or Discord's pranks. Her mouth felt a great deal sorer, so she stopped smiling with something and let her polite smile cross her features. A relaxed, pleasant smile. Princess Celestia clutched her Kirin daughter.
My daughter.
Tighter. Celestia controlled so much, and yet...
Mother. Daughter. My daughter.
She blinked, and was glad no pony could see the fresh tears trailing down her cheeks in small rivulets. She forced the lump in her throat down with terrifying ease.
I was not prepared for this.
This redo and also sequel of the story Scrambled Serenity was commissioned by Redeemer of Dark. I do appreciate your support, friend, and I'm glad that you hopefully like this. I really do, because I absolutely loved working with the VAs, even though we had a time limit. That is on me. However, I loved working with them, and I really enjoyed doing the last bit of that story. I definitely think it's a good, small package story that's cute and perfect for heartwarming. So I hope you enjoyed. However, a special thank you to my VAs. Thank you to the voice actor of Princess Celestia, Cayman Elizabeth, and the voice actor for Discord, Brennan Michael. These guys are amazing. I will be leaving their casting call page down below if you want to check them out for your own projects, or if you just want to say good job on this. Either way, I'll be leaving them down below and be sure to check them out. However, thank you to everybody that supported me this year. I cannot believe we're celebrating another heartwarming together. Man, it feels like yesterday where I was stressing about producing the TCP special. This is a lot more downscale than that, but also a lot less stressful. You take some, you lose some, right? I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Thank you to all of my Patreons, to everyone that watches the videos, who likes, who comments. Just know that all your viewership and your engagement with my content is just amazing, and I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you guys so much for your support this year. This has been Firehearth. Have a wonderful day.